The world was changing, though most people did not know it yet. Life on Earth seemed normal. Streets were crowded with traffic, children laughed in schools, and markets buzzed with noise. But in the silence of space, something moved. Strange lights flickered in the black sky. Satellites vanished one by one. Powerful nations tried to hide the truth, but rumors began to spread. People whispered that the stars were watching. In a quiet research lab far from the city, a young scientist named Dr. Elias Turner stared at a screen filled with static. He had been listening to deep space signals for years, but now, something strange was buried inside the noise. At first it sounded like random static, but patterns began to appear. It was not natural. Someone or something was sending hidden messages. His hands trembled as he cleaned the signal. The voice that came through was not human. It was harsh, broken, but clear enough to chill his blood. Prepare. We are coming. Across the oceans, leaders gathered in secret. They spoke behind closed doors, hidden from the public. The message was no longer a rumor. Alien ships were real and they were close. Some leaders wanted to negotiate, others wanted to hide. But a few argued for something different. Humanity had never built a ship larger than a battleship or faster than a fighter. But now they would need something greater, something strong enough to fight the darkness. A word began to echo in the chambers of power. Stardestroyer. The plan was bold, almost impossible. A single warship bigger than a city, strong enough to hold its own against alien fleets. Scientists said it could not be done. Engineers called it madness, but fear left no choice. If Earth did not fight, it would be destroyed. If Earth did not rise, it would kneel forever. So the order was given. Across hidden shipyards, under the seas, and in orbit around the moon, construction began. But Earth was not united. Ordinary people did not know the full truth. News outlets reported strange stories. Fires in military bases, missing ships, skies flashing at night. People asked questions, but governments only said it was satellite failures or training accidents. The truth was too heavy to reveal. The truth would have caused panic. Still, whispers grew louder. Some called it war. Others called it the end of the world. In the shadows of a space station, engineers worked night and day. They built engines larger than skyscrapers. They shaped steel plates thicker than any wall on Earth. Thousands of workers gave their sweat and blood. Some never returned home. The project was hidden, but too many knew. Rumors traveled through the underworld. Rumors that Earth was preparing a monster of war. And when there are whispers, there are spies. One night, deep inside an underwater shipyard, alarms screamed. Guards rushed through the halls. An intruder had been caught. He was not human. His skin was pale gray, his eyes black like glass. He had hidden among the workers for months, watching, learning. Now cornered, he smiled with sharp teeth. Before he could be questioned, he swallowed something that killed him instantly. But with his last breath, he spoke in a voice that froze everyone. Too late. They are already coming. Dr. Turner sat alone in his office, staring at the endless stars outside the window. His discovery had been confirmed by others. The aliens were not only real, they were near. He thought of his family, of the billions of people on Earth who still laughed, worked, and lived without fear. They did not know what was coming. They did not know how close death already was. The responsibility felt crushing on his shoulders. Humanity was facing its first true test, and time was running out. Meanwhile, in the great halls of Earth's leaders, the final design of the Stardestroyer was revealed. The drawings showed a ship unlike anything before. A long spear of steel and fire, armed with cannons that could tear apart moons, powered by reactors that glowed like suns. It was not just a warship. It was a symbol, a declaration to the stars that humanity would not bow. But even as the leaders looked at the design with pride, fear remained. Could Earth truly build such a thing before the aliens arrived? Could humanity survive its first war beyond the skies? No one knew. All they had was hope, and the burning fire of survival. Above the blue planet, far away in the blackness, shadows moved. Alien ships drifted just beyond human reach, watching, waiting. Their time was near, and down on Earth, the whisper of war had already begun. The oceans of Earth hid secrets deeper than anyone imagined. Beneath the waves, far below the light of the sun, giant steel caverns had been carved into the seabed. Inside them, the future of humanity was being built. The project had no name spoken aloud, but those who worked there called it the ship. To them, it was not just metal and wires. It was hope. It was survival. The shipyard never slept. Day and night, thousands of engineers, welders, and scientists labored side by side. Sparks rained like firestorms, machines roared, and great plates of steel shook the waters as they were lowered into place. Every man and woman knew the cost of failure. The aliens were coming. If the Star Destroyer was not finished in time, Earth would fall. But whispers traveled through the halls. Accidents happened too often. Explosions tore through fuel lines. Fires broke out in storage bays. Once, a great engine core nearly melted down before it could be shut off. Some called it bad luck, but others spoke in low voices of something worse: sabotage. The leaders of Earth grew restless. They demanded progress. They demanded speed. The workers, exhausted and afraid, pressed on. But fear lived among them like a shadow, and in that shadow something moved. One evening, an engineer named Hannah Reyes walked the long steel corridors of the shipyard. She had worked for months on the Star Destroyer's engine core. Her hands were scarred, her eyes weary, but her spirit unbroken. As she passed a storage bay, she heard a faint hiss like gas escaping. She opened the door and froze. A figure stood in the dark, crouched beside a fuel pipe. The figure's skin shimmered pale under the emergency lights, and its hands were strange, long and clawed. Her breath caught in her throat. The intruder turned, and its black eyes reflected her face. For a moment, time stood still. Then the figure moved. It lunged at her with unnatural speed. Hannah screamed, and guards stormed into the room. Shots echoed through the steel corridors. The creature fell, but not before its hand pressed a small device onto the wall. A red light blinked rapidly. Hannah dove forward, slamming her wrench against it. Sparks flew, and the device shattered just before it could ignite the fuel. The guards dragged the body into the light. It was not human. Not fully. It looked like a mixture of man and alien, as if someone had tried to shape themselves into human form and failed. The workers stared in silence, their faces pale with fear. If such a creature had walked among them, how many more were there? The leaders wasted no time. Security doubled, and every worker was scanned. Rumors of alien spies spread across the shipyards like wildfire. Some workers quit, too frightened to return. Others grew more determined, vowing to see the ship finished no matter the cost. The Star Destroyer became more than a weapon. It became a race against time. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, another shipyard floated among the stars. This one was hidden behind a veil of satellites and cloaked drones. From its docks, great towers of steel rose like castles in space. Here, too, the work never stopped. But even in orbit, sabotage struck. A reactor test went wrong, blasting half the dock into silence. Dozens died. The survivors whispered that the enemy already had eyes inside. Dr. Elias Turner watched the chaos unfold from the command deck. He had been brought into the project after decoding the alien signals. Now he walked among the workers, offering encouragement where he could. But he knew the truth. For every day the shipyards worked, the enemy drew closer. His calculations showed alien ships had crossed the outer solar system. In months, maybe weeks, they would be here. The design of the Star Destroyer was almost finished. The blueprints showed a vessel longer than 5 city blocks, armed with cannons that could punch through planets. Its core reactor was said to glow brighter than the sun itself. Yet the ship was still only half built. Metal skeletons floated in space, engines incomplete, weapons silent. Could humanity finish in time? No one knew. Then came the message. A deep space probe returning from the edge of the solar system sent its last signal before going dark. The image it carried showed ships, dozens of them, drifting through the black. Alien warships, their shapes sharp and unnatural, moving closer with every hour. The leaders argued. Some wanted to reveal the truth to the world. Others demanded silence, fearing riots. In the end, they chose the same path as before. Secrecy. But secrets cannot hold forever. Workers talked. Soldiers whispered. Families noticed their loved ones gone for months. Rumors spread into the streets. Strange lights in the sky became nightly news. People asked questions. The answers never came. Only fear grew. Back in the ocean shipyard, Hannah stood on a platform overlooking the growing hull of the Star Destroyer. She touched the cold steel and whispered to herself, "We must finish. We must." She did not know if the ship would be enough. She only knew it was all they had. And in the silent dark beyond Pluto, alien ships shifted course. Their engines flared like burning stars. They were no longer hiding, they were coming. The Star Destroyer was no longer just a dream. Its skeleton rose high in the ocean shipyard, and in orbit the space dock swarmed with workers like ants around a giant. The world's greatest engineers, scientists, and soldiers worked together, not as separate nations, but as one desperate humanity. For the first time in history, humans were united under one purpose, survival. But unity was fragile. Behind closed doors, leaders argued over who would command the ship. Some wanted it under military control. Others demanded a global council. Rivalries, greed, and pride crept into every discussion. The project was meant to save humanity, but it also became a prize that everyone wanted to claim. While Earth bickered, the stars grew darker. Dr. Elias Turner barely slept anymore. His job was to monitor signals from space, searching for alien transmissions. Each day he stared at endless streams of data, and each day he saw more. The aliens were no longer hiding their presence. Strange patterns lit up the outer edges of the solar system. Ships, hundreds of them, moved like shadows through the void. Some approached the Kuiper Belt, others lingered beyond Pluto. They were too far to attack, but close enough to watch, and watch they did. Earth's long-range probes sent back eerie images, enormous ships with black hulls and jagged edges. They moved without sound, without visible engines, as if drifting on unseen currents. Whenever human drones tried to follow, they vanished. Some were destroyed instantly, as if erased by invisible fire. Others simply disappeared, their signals cut off in silence. To the people of Earth, only scraps of this news leaked. Farmers spoke of seeing lights in the sky. Fishermen swore their compasses spun wildly at sea. Amateur astronomers captured blurred photos of shadows moving against the stars. Governments dismissed them all as mistakes. But whispers spread faster than truth. Fear was growing. Meanwhile, the Star Destroyer's first tests began. In a sealed chamber, a prototype cannon was fired at a dead asteroid pulled into orbit. The blast lit up the darkness like a second sun. The asteroid cracked apart, burning as fragments fell toward the Earth's atmosphere. The weapon had worked, but at a terrible price. The energy wave from the test knocked out dozens of satellites and half the space station's systems fried. Scientists warned the power was too unstable. Leaders ignored them. The ship must be ready, no matter the cost. But the enemy was already watching. In a dark control room deep in the Pacific shipyard, alarms screamed. A long-range telescope had spotted something impossible. An alien craft had entered orbit. It was small, no larger than a fighter, but it moved with impossible speed. Drones chased it, but it vanished like smoke, reappearing miles away. For hours it danced around Earth's defenses, testing, learning. When human fighters finally closed in, the alien craft released a blinding pulse and vanished into the stars. The crew who witnessed it whispered one thing: "They are scouting us." Hannah Reyes stood on the half-built hull of the Star Destroyer, looking at the endless sky above. She had worked tirelessly on the ship's engines, but tonight she felt uneasy. The stars seemed too quiet, too heavy with secrets. She remembered the intruder they had caught in the shipyard, the pale creature that died with the words, "They are already coming." Now she believed it fully. The shadows were here. Tension spread across Earth like a storm. Soldiers trained in hidden bases. Civilians noticed strange movements of troops and supplies. Protests erupted in cities as people demanded answers. Why were so many resources being spent in secret? Why were families disappearing into silence? The government said nothing. They only ordered more secrecy, more silence. But silence did not stop fear. One night, Dr. Turner received a new signal. His heart pounded as he decoded it. It was not a threat this time, it was a message. Clear, cold, and terrifying. It said only 2 words: "We see." The message spread quickly among the leaders. Panic followed. Some argued Earth should surrender. Others wanted to negotiate. But a few stood firm. "We cannot bow," they said. "We must finish the Star Destroyer." In the blackness of space, the alien shadows drew closer. Their ships moved silently into new positions, circling Earth like predators waiting to strike. Each day they grew bolder. Each day the Star Destroyer's builders worked harder, racing against time. But time was running out. As dawn rose over Earth, Hannah stood once more in the shipyard. The steel of the Star Destroyer stretched before her, massive and unfinished. The engines were still not complete, the weapons still not stable. Yet deep inside she felt the truth. Whether ready or not, the day of battle was coming. Above, among the stars, the shadows waited. The day came when the shipyard doors finally opened. After months of sweat, sacrifice, and fear, The Star Destroyer was ready to breathe its first breath of power. It rose slowly from the ocean depths, pushed upward by engines that shook the seas. Waves thundered across the shores and fishing boats toppled as the massive shadow climbed into the sky. People who had never even heard of the project now looked up in shock as clouds split apart, revealing the largest human creation in history. The news spread in seconds. Across the world, screens lit up with the image, a ship the size of a city rising from the water like a titan. Crowds cheered. Some fell to their knees, some wept. For the first time, humanity saw hope forged in steel. But in the dark, others trembled. For with such a ship, war was no longer a whisper. It was certain. Inside the Star Destroyer, the crew gathered at their stations. Pilots, engineers, gunners, scientists, all chosen from every corner of Earth. They strapped into chairs, eyes wide with awe. None of them had ever seen such a ship from the inside. Corridors stretched endlessly, lined with humming reactors. Engines glowed like molten suns. The command bridge itself was larger than any palace. Every screen, every switch, every weapon waited for human hands. Hana Rhea stood among them, her heart racing. She had helped build the engines that now roared beneath her feet. She touched the cold railing, feeling the vibration of power. It was alive. This was no longer steel and wires. It was humanity's first giant of war. Dr. Elias Turner stood at the bridge, watching the Earth shrink below as the Star Destroyer climbed higher. He thought of the alien signals, of the shadows beyond Pluto. They would see this ship. They would know Earth would not go quietly into the dark. But he also knew the risk. This was a test. If anything failed, if the ship broke apart in orbit, humanity's last hope would die before its first flight. The captain, Admiral Rourke, stood tall at the center of the bridge. His voice was steady, but his eyes revealed the weight of history. Engage thrusters. Take her into orbit, the ship rumbled. Engines flared. The Star Destroyer broke through the atmosphere, fire trailing behind like a comet. In minutes, it was free of Earth, floating above the blue planet. Silence filled the bridge as the crew looked at the view. Below them, Earth glowed like a jewel. Above them, stars stretched into forever. And around them, the ship pulsed with unimaginable power. The test began. Small drones launched from the docks, flying alongside the ship like tiny birds circling a giant. Systems were checked, engines stable, shields humming, weapons charged. Then came the moment of truth, the main cannon test. A lifeless asteroid drifted nearby, chosen as the target. Energy gathered at the ship's core, glowing brighter and brighter until the whole bridge shone with white light. Hana held her breath. The sound was a deep hum, rising higher until it felt like the ship itself was screaming. Then the cannon fired. The asteroid vanished in a blaze of fire. Not shattered, not broken, erased. The crew gasped. On Earth, billions watched in awe as the live broadcast showed humanity's first true weapon of the stars. The cheers were deafening, but the celebration did not last. Sensors screamed. Alarms flashed red across the bridge. Something had appeared at the edge of the system. Small at first, then larger, spreading across the radar like a shadow. Dozens of signatures, ships, alien ships. The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at the screens as the shadows moved closer. They were not attacking yet. They were waiting, watching. Then came the message. A voice cut through every channel, deep and cold. It spoke in broken English, but its meaning was clear. Surrender the Star Destroyer, or Earth burns. The crew froze. Hana's heart pounded. Dr. Turner's hands shook. Admiral Rourke clenched his jaw but said nothing. The weight of the galaxy pressed down on them. Humanity had shown its first weapon, and the enemy had answered. Across Earth, panic erupted. Civilians demanded to know what the message meant. Governments scrambled. Leaders argued. Some begged to give in, to surrender the ship to avoid destruction. But others shouted louder, "No, we cannot bow." Not now. In the bridge, Admiral Rourke finally spoke. His voice was steady like steel. Send them our reply. The crew waited. We do not surrender. Silence followed. In the depths of space, the alien ships shifted. Their shadows stretched longer, circling like wolves around prey. The first true test of the Star Destroyer was no longer firing at rocks. It was about to face the enemy. Hana closed her eyes for a moment, whispering to herself, "Hold, just hold." Above Earth, the first flight had begun. But so had the first battle. Within days of the warning, Alien fleets pushed into the inner solar system. First, they destroyed Earth's listening posts near Neptune. Then, one by one, human colonies on distant moons went silent. No distress calls, no survivors, only silence. The shadows had finally stepped out of the dark, and now they moved like a storm. On Earth, panic spread. Cities filled with protests and riots. People demanded the truth. They had seen the Star Destroyer rise into the sky. They had heard the alien threat, and now they wanted answers. Governments tried to calm them, but fear had no cure. Everywhere, eyes turned upward, waiting for fire to fall. Above the planet, the Star Destroyer prepared for war. Its engines burned brighter than ever. Fighters swarmed from its hangars, small compared to the giant, but fast and deadly. Soldiers boarded in silence, carrying weapons never used before. The crew knew the truth. They were the shield between Earth and extinction. Admiral Rourke stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were locked on the screens, where alien ships spread across the void. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Their designs were terrifying, jagged, alive like predators born in darkness. Each ship glowed with a sickly green light, weapons pulsing as if hungry. Dr. Elias Turner watched the data scroll in. His voice was low. "Their fleet is larger than we feared." "Much larger. How many?" Rourke asked. Turner swallowed. "Enough to burn Earth to ashes." The Admiral did not flinch. He turned to his crew. "Then we make our stand." The battle began at the edge of the moon. Human satellites flashed alive, turning into weapons. Orbital defense stations fired streams of missiles, lighting up the dark. The first alien ships fell, shattered into debris. Cheers erupted on Earth. For a moment, hope flickered, but then the aliens answered. From their ships came beams of pure energy, slicing through stations like paper. Dozens of defenses fell in minutes. Human fighters darted in, brave and fast, but they were swatted down like flies. In silence, explosions bloomed across space. Entire squadrons vanished. The moon shook with impacts. The Star Destroyer roared forward. Its cannons lit the void with burning light. One alien warship exploded under its fire, then another. For the first time, humans saw the Predator bleed. The crew shouted with triumph, their voices echoing through the bridge. But the victory was short. The aliens swarmed, hundreds of them, surrounding the Star Destroyer like wolves around a giant. Their beams struck the shields again and again. The great ship shook under the blows. Lights flickered, alarms screamed. Hannah Reyes gripped her console, her knuckles white. She had built these engines. She prayed they would hold, shields at 60%. A voice cried, "Divert power!" Rourke barked. "Hold the line!" The Star Destroyer fired again, its cannon tearing through 3 ships in a single blast. But the recharge took too long. Dozens of enemy craft pressed closer, their weapons hammering. The giant shuddered. For a moment it seemed it might break apart. Then came the order. "Launch the defense wings." Hundreds of small fighters burst from the Star Destroyer's hangars, filling the void with fire. They darted among the alien ships, striking from every side. Explosions flared as some found their mark. For a heartbeat, the tide slowed. But the aliens were relentless. Earth itself trembled as fragments of burning ships rained into its atmosphere. Entire cities watched streaks of fire cross the sky, not knowing if they were victories or deaths. Families huddled together, staring upward, listening to the endless reports of destruction. The siege had begun and no one was safe. Then disaster struck. In the chaos, the Star Destroyer's engines were hit. A beam tore through the rear hull and the ship groaned like a wounded beast. Hannah's station shook violently. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Her console screamed red warnings. "Engines failing," she shouted. "We're losing thrust." On the bridge, silence fell for one breath. The great ship was slowing, drifting helplessly in the storm. The enemy saw it. Alien ships closed in, hungry for the kill. Dr. Turner's voice cracked. "If we can't move, we're finished." Admiral Rourke's face was stone. He gave one order, his voice hard as steel. "All power to shields. Buy us time." The Star Destroyer glowed, its last energy pouring into its defenses. Beams crashed against it again and again. The shields flickered, bending under the storm. On Earth, billions watched. Some prayed, some wept. Some screamed at their screens. They saw their great ship, their last hope, stranded among the stars, surrounded by enemies. And in the void, the alien fleet drew closer, preparing for the final strike. The Star Destroyer was trapped. The Star Destroyer drifted, its engines broken, its shields trembling under the storm of alien fire. Every hit shook the giant ship like thunder in the void. On Earth, billions watched in silence, their breath caught in their throats. This was their shield, their last hope, and now it was bleeding. Inside the ship, chaos reigned. Sparks burst from consoles, smoke filled the halls, and soldiers ran through corridors carrying rifles and gear. Hanna slammed her hands against the engine controls, her heart racing. She had worked for months to build this ship, and now it was falling apart. Warning lights flashed everywhere. The engines were dying. "We can't hold much longer," shouted a young officer. Before Admiral Rourke could reply, alarm screamed a new warning. The enemy was boarding. Alien craft slammed into the Stardestroyer's hull, cutting through metal like knives. Hatches exploded open, and for the first time, humans saw the enemy face to face. They were tall, thin, with skin like shadows and eyes like burning coals. Their weapons pulsed with green fire, tearing through steel. They moved fast, too fast, like predators unleashed. The corridors became battlefields. Human soldiers fought desperately, rifles blazing. Explosions echoed as grenades tore apart invaders. But the aliens did not die easily. Some crawled even after being shot, their bodies twisting unnaturally. Blades clashed with claws. Screams echoed in the metal halls. The Star Destroyer shook not only with weapons, but with the cries of war inside its heart. Hanna grabbed a rifle from a fallen soldier and fired down the corridor, her hands shaking, but her aim steady. She had never been trained to fight, but survival left no choice. She fired again and again until the alien fell, its black blood burning holes into the floor. She gasped for air, trembling, but stood her ground. Dr. Elias Turner was cornered near the command deck. He watched in horror as an alien cut through a squad of Marines, its claws slicing like knives. Just as it turned toward him, a soldier tackled it, sacrificing himself to give Turner time to escape. Blood painted the walls. Turner stumbled, his mind spinning, his heart pounding. For the first time, he felt the true terror of war. On the bridge, Admiral Rourke's voice roared like a storm. "Hold the ship! Do not give them an inch!" His orders rang across the comms, his tone steel and fire. Even as aliens broke into the outer decks, the Admiral stood tall, his eyes burning with fury. But the truth was clear. The Star Destroyer was dying. The shields flickered weakly. The engines were silent. The enemy was inside. Then came the moment of sacrifice. Chief Engineer Malik, an old man with scars and oil-stained hands, appeared in the engine chamber. His eyes were calm, even as fire roared around him. He saw Hanna's desperate face and gave her a sad smile. "I can restart the core," he said. "But it won't hold unless I stay here." "No," Hanna cried, her voice breaking. "We can find another way." Malik shook his head. "There is no other way. Tell them. Tell them to finish what we started." Before she could stop him, he stepped into the chamber. His hands flew across the controls, forcing the reactor awake. The engine screamed back to life, glowing brighter, hotter, too hot. The power surged through the ship. Lights returned. The Star Destroyer roared alive again, but Malik did not return. The chamber exploded with light, sealing his fate. Hanna fell to her knees, tears streaming, but his sacrifice had bought them a chance. "Engines online," she cried through the comms. "We have power." Admiral Rourke wasted no time. "Weapons, fire all batteries." The Star Destroyer unleashed hell. Cannons thundered. Missiles streaked into the void, and the main cannon fired its burning light. Dozens of alien ships exploded in silence, their shadows torn apart by human fire. The invaders inside the ship faltered, their command broken. Human soldiers pressed forward, driving them back, clearing the halls with blood and fury. For the first time in the battle, the tide shifted. Humanity stood tall, their screams of rage echoing through steel corridors. The Star Destroyer bled, but it fought. Then the sensors screamed again. A new shadow filled the screens, larger than anything they had seen before. A ship so massive it blocked the stars. Its hull glowed with a dark, living light, and its weapons pulsed with energy strong enough to crush a world. The enemy mothership had arrived. On the bridge, silence fell. The crew stared at the giant, their faces pale. Dr. Turner whispered the truth that everyone already knew. "It's 10 times our size." Hanna stood at her console, her tears still wet, her heart burning with rage. She whispered to herself, "Then we fight." Admiral Rourke's voice broke the silence. "All stations prepare for final engagement. This is not the end. Not while we still breathe." The Star Destroyer turned, engines blazing, its weapons glowing once more. The mothership loomed ahead, a mountain of death in the void. The final battle was about to begin. The mothership filled the void like a black sun. It was so vast that even the Stardestroyer, humanity's greatest creation, looked small beside it. Its surface shimmered like liquid steel, alive with pulsing veins of green fire. Weapons the size of mountains glowed across its hull. It was not just a ship, it was an empire carved into metal. On the bridge of the Stardestroyer, silence ruled. Every crew member stared at the giant shadow ahead. No one spoke, no one breathed. They all knew the truth. If this battle was lost, Earth would burn. Admiral Rourke stood at the center, his face carved from stone. "This is it," he said, his voice low but steady. "The fate of Earth rests here." The mothership moved first. A wave of energy blasted outward, striking the Stardestroyer's shields. The great ship shook violently. Alarms screamed and consoles sparked. Hannah Reyes gripped the railing, her heart pounding. The shields barely held. Another strike like that and they would collapse. "Return fire," Rourke commanded. The Stardestroyer's cannons thundered. Streams of fire lit the darkness, slamming into the mothership's surface. Explosions rippled across the alien hull, but the wounds healed almost instantly, the metal shifting and closing like living flesh. Dr. Elias Turner's face turned pale. "It's repairing itself. We can't win in a straight fight." Rourke's jaw tightened. "Then we won't fight straight." The battle raged on. Alien swarms poured from the mothership, thousands of smaller craft diving like predators. Human fighters launched from the Stardestroyer, meeting them head-on. Explosions lit the void in silent flashes of death. Whole squadrons vanished in seconds, but others pressed on, striking hard, sacrificing everything to buy time for the giant ship. Inside the Stardestroyer, corridors burned once more as boarding parties tried to break through. Soldiers fought in bloody waves, pushing the invaders back deck by deck. Hannah rushed between consoles, rerouting power, patching systems, her hands trembling but never stopping. Sweat and smoke stung her eyes, but she did not stop. She could not stop. On the bridge, Turner's voice broke through the chaos. "The reactor. If we overload it, we can turn the entire ship into a weapon." The words froze the crew. Everyone knew what that meant. The Stardestroyer was Earth's only shield. To sacrifice it would be to lose everything they had built, but to hold it back meant certain death. Admiral Rourke closed his eyes for one breath, then opened them with steel in his gaze. "Prepare the overload sequence." "No," Hannah whispered, her voice breaking. "We can't. This ship is humanity's hope." Rourke turned to her, his eyes heavy. "This ship is hope because of what it stands for, not because it survives. Hope is sacrifice. Hope is showing the galaxy that humanity will never bow. Not now, not ever." His words cut through the fear. The crew straightened, their hands steady on their controls. If this was their last day, then it would be remembered forever. The Stardestroyer turned, engines blazing with their final strength. It cut through the alien swarms, ripping apart ships in its path. The mothership loomed closer, its weapons glowing for the killing strike. On Earth, billions watched the live feed in silence. Families held hands. Children cried. Soldiers in bunkers saluted the screen. Everyone knew this was the end. "Reactor at 90%, Turner said, his voice shaking. Hannah stood at her console, tears running down her face. She whispered to herself, to the ship, to the memory of Malik who had given his life for the engines. "One last time. Give us one last time," the Stardestroyer roared. Its weapons fired everything at once, tearing open wounds across the mothership's hull. Explosions flared, and for the first time the alien giant faltered. The opening was there, now, Rourke shouted. "All power to the core." The reactor glowed like a newborn star, brighter and brighter until it blinded the bridge. The Stardestroyer surged forward, ramming straight into the heart of the mothership. The impact shook the void itself, then came the explosion. It was not fire. It was not sound. It was light, a burning, endless light that stretched across the stars. The mothership shattered, torn apart in a storm of flame and steel. The Stardestroyer vanished with it, consumed in its own sacrifice. For a moment, the solar system lit brighter than the sun, and then silence. When the light faded, nothing of the mothership remained. Only fragments drifting in the void, silent and lifeless. The alien fleet, broken without its leader, scattered into the dark. Earth was safe. On the planet below, the people erupted. Cheers, sobs, prayers, cries of triumph echoed across every city, every home. Humanity had survived. Humanity had fought back, but the Stardestroyer was gone. Its crew, its captain, its heart, all gone into the fire. Yet their sacrifice burned brighter than any star. Across the galaxy, the message was clear: Earth would not kneel. In the quiet aftermath, Dr. Elias Turner stood at a viewing station, watching the fragments drift. His voice was heavy but filled with pride. They'll remember this day, the day Earth forged its first Star Destroyer, and proved to the stars that humanity fights. Hannah placed her hand on the cold glass, tears falling freely. And they'll know, we never gave up. Above them, the stars shone brighter, as if bowing to the courage of a small, stubborn world. The day of the Star Destroyer had ended. But the story of humanity had only just begun.